Welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and I'm thrilled to bring you honest conversations with dads and daughters, sharing heartfelt stories, actionable advice, and real daughter perspectives that will help you be the best girl dad you can be. David Schnurman, welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Madeline.
Thanks for being here. I'm so excited to have you on and would love for you to just kick things off by introducing yourself to the audience, telling us a little bit about where you're from, what you do, and about your family.
My name is David Schnurman. I am a girl dad, a proud girl dad. I have 3 kids. My oldest are twins who are boy-girl twins who are going to college next year. So excited and nervous about that. And my youngest is 12 years old, 7th grade. And 3 years ago, we decided to get a dog. And my daughter said, it needs to be even. So even though I wanted a boy dog, I got a girl dog. And I'm very happy about that. Because when I see people with boy dogs, I'm like, that's too much going on there. So, and then my wife and I have been married for 21 years now. We met in college in GW. And so that's the family story of who we are. I run an online education business for lawyers, been doing that for almost 20 years. Lawyers, once they have their license, they need to keep taking classes to keep up with all the changes in the laws. We make their lives super easy. And so most recently, I just published my 2nd book. It's called 11 Suitcases, and it's a memoir about a journey I did with my family in 2019. We all moved to Barcelona, and we ended up staying there for 2 years. So it's why we went, what happened while we were there, and how we transformed as a result. So lots of interesting, fun stories there, of course, that we can get into as well.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. To start, I would love to hear what inspired you to write 11 Suitcases.
So we moved there in 2019, and pretty much from day one, I started journaling publicly. So I've been journaling my entire life, but I decided to put it public so my family and friends could see, what we were doing and experience it. Really quickly, it started branching out to people I never met, people I just met in Barcelona, or people who just friends passed it to somebody else. And one of the people who read it, his name was Joe Jacoby. He used to be a gold Olympic. He won the Olympics in 1992 in Barcelona for kayaking. And he ended up staying because he loved it there so much. But now he was a coach. And he said, I'm reading your blog. Can I come meet you? I'm like, yeah, you can come meet me. Yeah, cool. And so we went out to lunch and he's like, I just wanted to tell you what you're doing is so special, because what happens is when you're younger, it's like you're on a kayak and you're going down a large river. And as you get older, it goes to like a paddle boat, into like a sailboat, until eventually you're on like a barge or a container vessel on a small, narrow river, and you feel like you can't turn anymore. And you're stuck in that direction. He's like, but you turned, and that's rare. And he said, so you need to keep writing and sharing this story so other people, especially those in midlife with kids, know it's never too late to take that leap and turn. And I really appreciated that, because he wasn't the only one who said that to me. And people were saying, I'm inspired by your story. It makes us want to do something with ours. And so I just realized at that point, maybe 2 months later, I said, someday I'm going to turn these journals into a book. That someday took 5 years, but I got it done. And that's the public reason. The other reason, which I share too, but it's more private, is for my kids. Right? This is a journey that they're going to have for the rest of their life. We've created core memory. We've changed who they are as people. And someday they're going to want to share it with friends and their kids and their generation. Their legacy will go on. And of course, memory fades over time, but now they have something. And they're even on the cover of the book. So it's a cool picture of all of us. This is the picture of our family. That's all the 11 suitcases that we packed. And that was actually at the airport in Delta, but then this in the background was our view from our terrace in Barcelona. So we put that in the background. And if you've ever been to Barcelona, all the streets have this tile, which are really famous. We combined it all. So now they're on the cover of a book, and their story is out there.
That's amazing. I love the physical manifestation of your story and your experience together. I mean, maybe I'm super sentimental, but I do think that I speak for a lot of daughters when I say there's something so special about a physical memory with your family and with your dad in particular. And I have so many that come to mind, but there's one like super random one. When we were little girls, my dad took concrete, wet concrete, and made these little stepping stones with our feet and hands. And they're still in the backyard today, just like kind of in the plants. And I saw them recently and I was like, wait, that's so cute that he did that, A, and that he still has it. And so you writing this book, publishing it, getting it out there, not only, like you said, does it inspire others and remind families that it's never too late to take a leap of faith, but also this is so special for your entire family because it's something that will live on forever and something that you did for them, and it shows.
Yeah, totally. And like, I think we were there with a lot of other expats, right? So it's unique to most people I know now. But when you're there, you're surrounded by expats, but none of them were actually writing down what they were doing. And my biggest fear in life is forgetting what I've done. So I actually journal every single day about what I've done, just so I can, what did you do last Tuesday? You have no clue, I'm sure, unless it
Yeah.
was something unique and different. But I go back and I do that. But the thing about when you're abroad and you're traveling, you're doing this adventure, it wasn't the typical day, right? One of the things that happened in 2019, Kelly and I, my wife, we were kind of stuck in the rut of midlife. And we had the kids that we were raising, we had the routine of our business. And I just felt like there has to be something more to that. And time goes by fast when you kind of do the routine. And so when you travel with your family and you get out of your comfort zone, time seems to slow down and you can
Mhm.
remember all the trips that you did versus like, I don't know, in the past 2 weeks, wake up, go to school, work, wake up, go to school, work. It all kind of blends together. So my daughter and all my kids have all these stories that they share about the trip. They wrote their college essays about part of it. We had my book launch event last week. There's like 100
Congrats.
people there, and they spoke at it about how it impacted them. So I loved it. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I just love this idea of taking this leap of faith, and I think it's something that is so hard to do initially, but once it's done, you realize, that it's very manageable. And even I'm thinking back to a time where I was extremely stressed out at work and I didn't really feel like I was putting much value into the world with the work that I was doing. I had a boss that was very challenging. And I was honestly crying like a lot and was stressed out all the time. And my husband now, he was my boyfriend at the time. He was like, you don't have to do this job anymore. Like there is so much out there. You're clearly unhappy and you don't love the work that you're doing. Like it's okay if you want to change. And I just remember we were sitting at dinner. I remember the exact table we were at, and my mind was just like, because I was like, oh, you're so right. I don't have to continue down this path, and it's okay to pivot, and it's okay to change course. And you know what? Right after that, there was a big change made, and that's actually when right before I published Girl Dad, and it's just been down that path ever since. And I've been so happy. I'm not stressed because the work that I'm doing is so meaningful and it feels light and it feels good. Um, and I had to, embrace some courage and embrace some uncomfortable feelings and emotions when I made that change. But in the long run, it was so good. And that's just a micro version of what you're talking about. You're talking about moving your entire family across the
Well,
world to Barcelona.
I'll share two things. One,
Yeah.
so my first book is in 2019. I share a story about someone named Craig Valentine, and it's sort of like the opposite of what you're saying. So he had a job that he was really good at, and his big dream in life was to be a national keynote public speaker. And so he got all his courage up, and he went up to his boss and he said, "Michael, I'm leaving because I want to pursue my dream." And he goes, "Craig, we can't have you leave. You're important." And he gave him a raise. And he goes, "No, thank you so much. I can't do it." And he gave him more of a raise. And finally, he's like, "No, I can't do it." He finally said, "Okay, I'm going to like double your salary." He goes, "Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Could I go home and talk to my wife about it?" So he went home, talked to his wife, and then he made the decision. He came back and he quit the job. And what he realized was he was almost too good to be great. he was almost too good in being in his good life, too comfortable in his good life at this job that was but it was comfortable to be his great self. And then of course he
Mhm.
quit. And of course, the good part of the story is he became one of the best keynote speakers out there, which sort of reminded me a little bit of your story of writing your book and putting it out there. So yeah, it can be you hate your job or you're just like too comfortable in your job or anywhere in between. So yeah, taking a leap doesn't mean travel. You don't have to move it to another country. You could change careers. You could just travel more. So there's
Mhm.
lots of different reasons behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much that you can learn while traveling. I think it's important for children to be able to see, different elements of the world, how people live. You can take a lot learn a lot of lessons from other countries and how they live their lives. My husband and I went on our honeymoon in Barcelona for the first night. And so I love that city, but I would love to hear more about your experience living there and really what lessons you learned and what your family learned while you were living abroad in Spain.
Maybe like 2 months into it, not even. My daughter and I, and she was 10 at the time. We were walking to get something to eat. And while we were waiting for the food, I asked her, I'm like, how has this experience been for you so far? Moving abroad, starting a new school, learning a new language. And she goes, I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was as she walks in. Um,
She's sprinting to her room. She's like, "I don't want any part of this."
um, and the doorbell's ringing. So lots going on. Um, but so maybe she'll hear me. But what I was going to say is I said, how has the experience been for you so far? And she goes, I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was. And actually, it's been much easier than I anticipated. I said, I know, me too. And then I go to her, what does that mean for other things that you think are going to be hard? She goes, well, I guess those things I think are going to be hard are going to be a lot easier than I think as well. And I was like, yes, because that was like one of the core lessons that I really thought it was going to be much more challenging. And it was just like, oh, there's a lot of expats here. There's a lot of WhatsApp groups to get in. It was just, moving in general is tough. Moving to another country is tougher, and learning a new language at the same time. So it did give us a lot of confidence, not only being there, but also taking some risk while we were there in the travel that we were doing and sort of living the vision that we had set, which I haven't even got into yet, but eventually we can talk about it. But the whole why we ended up here was not, we weren't trying to move abroad.
Mhm.
We were just trying to like put our kids to bed. So it's kind of funny how that ended up there, but we can get to that potentially if you want to.
Yeah, no, let's get to that. I wanna know more about, yeah, that thought process behind why you moved there and then how you ended up back in New York and just yeah,
Yeah.
the behind the scenes.
So it goes back to 2015. We had 3 kids, 6 and under, and all we were just struggling putting them to bed at night. So we were just trying to find a solution. I'm like, and by the way, and everything in between. So we were like, how do we deal with this? And somebody recommended we buy this book called 3 Questions for a Frantic Family. And in that, one of the questions you had to solve was like, what is unique about you and where do you see your family 10 years from today? And so we ran around, the twins were 6, and we ran around the kitchen table and said words that we felt made us unique. And like being healthy, being positive, being self-confident. And the last thing that I said was travel. And then we made this paragraph that we said, we want to do this, this, and this, and experience life through travel. And that's where we wanted to see ourselves by 2025. And this is 2015. We hadn't traveled at all with the family. And so I did what I learned to do in all these self-help books. I started telling the world about our mission because you
Mm.
can't let it sit. You got to put it out there
Mhm.
because that's how you attract like-minded people. And it worked. I ended up getting connected to somebody who just moved to Barcelona or just moved back from Barcelona after being there for a year. And like when he told me about that, I remember saying to him, I'm like, thank you for sharing. It's like, it's a pipe dream for us, but I appreciate it. And after 4 years of conversations, 2019, we took a lot of little steps, applied to the school because the kids were going from elementary to middle school. So like, my wife's like, why don't we just apply to the school that he went to? And why don't we just apply for a visa? And then the big step, or little step, but sort of the psychological step, was we started telling people we made the decision to go even before we actually decided.
Mhm.
And all those things combined, next thing you knew, you're on a plane in August of 2019 with 11 suitcases and moving to Barcelona.
I
Because
love it.
we had that vision, and that's was
Mhm.
really cool to see that starting to come to fruition.
Mhm. Yeah. And when you were talking about some of the lessons that you learned with your daughter and how, things aren't as hard as they may seem, it reminded me of this theme that we talk a lot about on this podcast, which is helping daughters build resilience and not be afraid of failure. And something that I think dads struggle with a lot based on the conversations that I have and just my understanding of how y'all work is just this balance of wanting to protect your daughters, but also prepare them for life hardships. And I think it's a really challenging balance because when you protect too much, you hold back, right? And you deprive children of learning opportunities and failures. And I think this obviously big move that's not for everyone is a great example of how you were able to prepare your daughter for life and use this as a great example for future challenges that she may face because now she knows she's moved across the world to another country before she can do anything, right? So I would love to just talk more about that theme and how you think about that when parenting and raising resilient children without, while protecting them, of course, but while really preparing them for what life has to offer.
One of the favorite lessons that I learned was all the way back in potty training days, and there's a book called 3 Days to Potty Training, and in the book, it had you change one thing to transform this resiliency and this ownership for your kids. Most parents, when you do potty training, you take away all the diapers and you say, okay, let's see what happens. Or you do something. And instead of, then they say, okay, tell me when you have to pee, do you have to pee? Do you have to pee? Do you have to pee? Because they don't want you to make an accident on the couch.
Mhm.
And that's what I would do. And that's what I was doing. And the book switches it from, do you have to pee, to tell me when you have to pee. Because it gives them that ownership that they're in control and
Mhm.
it's up to them. And to me, that that ability to control is a huge component for everybody, not just your
Mhm.
daughters and your kids, but to resiliency. On the So that's one thing. I do think daughters are interesting and different because I have two boys and one girl, and she's much tougher than both. It's so interesting, but also very sensitive. And she's going to come out in a second, I hear. But the thing is, like, she she's so when she tells me a problem, what my first instinct? What do you think my first instinct is when she tells me a
Solve
problem?
it.
Right. To solve it. And she's like, "I just want you to validate it." And because 'cause you're not hearing me if not. And so that is a constant area of growth that I'm like, there. I don't know. You probably haven't seen the movie Man Can't Jump, but there's a point where Rosie Perez is talking to Eddie Harrelson, and she says she's thirsty. So he goes up to get her water, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You said you're thirsty. I'm getting you water." She's like, "I don't want you to get me water. I want you to say I'm so sorry you're thirsty. Tell me about that." So I think that to me is also important to like
Mhm.
list to listen to your daughter and understand what she's going through is a big thing than trying to solve it. Uh, I think I can keep going from there, but like those are two constant things that I think about is like giving how do I give her ownership
Mhm.
versus like not trusting? And then how do I validate her feelings when she's sharing something versus trying to solve what she's telling me?
I'm so glad that you gave the second story as an example because your daughter told you, "Hey, I actually want you to validate my feelings. That's how I feel heard and understood." And most daughters won't do that. So for any dads listening, that is how our female brain works. We want that validation. We don't necessarily want you to jump ahead and solve problems. But your daughter's probably not telling you that. And what typically happens is the dad or the husband or, the man solves the woman's problem and she feels like you're not listening, and her quote unquote problem is actually not solved because the way she solves it is through communication and through getting her emotions and her feelings out. And she feels better once she talks about it and feels validated and heard and
Yeah,
understood. So,
that's
yeah.
interesting. No, she is really good at being verbal about that. And
Mhm.
also teaching me how to be a better dad. She tells, like, especially when we're like, we laugh about it, but
Mhm.
whatever. But when I'm screaming, she's like, well, if I start screaming when I'm an adult, you're the one to blame. So, I'm like, well, my dad screamed at me, whatever. But, so yeah, so we have some fun with that. And now, like, at 17, you're an adult. You control the room and the situation. So it's definitely it's different to see how we've evolved, since I mean, she was 10 when we moved, but even before we moved, what our relationship was. And, you miss those days a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, but I think this is an important point because and I'm sure part of it is just her natural personality and, like, her nature, but the fact that she is able to give you direct feedback and you respond well to it, all that's doing or
Sometimes, sometimes.
well, that's teaching her that you value her opinions and you listen to what she has to say. And so that teaches self-confidence, that teaches her that what she has to say is important and that you care to, show up for her the way that she's asking you to. So those are all really good things and you know, like I said, she's probably in the minority in terms of girls who actually speak up about these things with their dads. So, for the dads listening, these are important conversations to pay attention to because this may be how your daughter's thinking or feeling, but you may not be aware of it because she's not, necessarily expressing that via words. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and to build, I mean, I know you watched it, but, like, my stand-up routine was, like, real, like, her and my wife are amazing at getting the last word in with each other. And so she's just I'm proud of her that she's such a great, um you know, arguer or ability to stand up for what she wants. Like she'll always you can't it's very difficult to win an argument when somebody's always going to get the last word because they exhaust you. And I think that's just a really great thing to have in life because not only can she stand up for herself when she doesn't feel like she's being heard and she wants to be validated, she can also, you know, push her point of view and advocate for herself when needed.
Sounds like she'll make a great lawyer. Are you
I don't
are
I
you
don't
prepping
I don't
her?
promote that. It's really she actually wants to be, it's like my wife was a social worker for 17 years, so she wants to go in that area because I think it's connected to
Mhm.
being able to communicate with me about what we were talking about. She's really good, especially with kids, at, like, reading the room and reading when somebody's in pain or struggling
Mhm.
and being able to help them. So, she has that superpower gift to do that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Very empathetic, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
exactly, 100%.
Well, speaking of lawyers and work, you have your own business. You're obviously a very hardworking and busy dad and, have a lot of hours dedicated to your job. So, one of the things that we talk a lot about on this podcast is work life balance and how to navigate that when raising children. So, would love to just hear from you about how you think about work life balance.
I've always realized from the very beginning, even when I was working for somebody else, the most important thing that I want to control in my life is my time and my freedom. And certainly COVID helped accelerate that for a lot of us because when you're working from home, you have a lot more control of your time. But even before that, we moved in 2019. Because yes, it's my company, but it's even sometimes harder to do that. I realized that, and this is a statistic that's out there, 80% of the time that you're going to spend with your children is before the age of 18. So what are you going to do during that time period? It was intentional. Moving abroad, I knew that time was going to be much more rich and different and core memories for the rest of our lives. So that was a commitment we made to ourselves. And since we've been back, we've made commitments every year to do amazing, adventurous, challenging trips together. And that's where you get all this amazing, rich life memories. And time slows down for that. And it's the cliche. It's not whether you can afford to travel, it's whether you can afford not to travel.
Mhm.
I believe that to be true. And so from a work-life balance standpoint, it's not just me, it's a really big thing in my company. We give a lot. It's it's one of our big core values. Like, we have a 4-day work week, we have a lot of vacation days, we have a lot of benefits, we have a lot of team things. We wanna make sure for the longevity and health of the team members that they're with their family's the number one. I've
Mhm.
unfortunately been to more funerals than I wanted to in the past couple of years, and I can tell you, 99% of them, they're not talking about their work, they're talking about their family. So, yes, work-life balance is been my number one focus, and I think it shows even though I still feel like I don't get the respect I deserve from my kids, but I think that's part of the healthy relationship,
Mhm.
formula, I guess. I don't know. I wonder if you hear that from other dads. Whenever I talk to anyone else, they're like, "Yeah, me neither. Come on."
Yeah. No, and I think that it kinda comes later. It's almost
Yes.
like it's an investment that you're putting in right now into the relationship, and then when they grow up and a little bit more, then they start to realize how much you put in. And for me, it wasn't until I got to college where I really realized how lucky I was. Obviously, my dad, but my mom too, she's amazing, and, I met all kinds of girls who hated their dads, had no relationship with their dads. Like, there's so much of that that's actually more common than having a really healthy family dynamic and relationships within the family. And so that was really eye-opening to me, and it made me appreciate what I had a lot more.
I'm curious, when people say they hated their dads, do they say why?
You know what? I've had some people say why, yes. And some people that it was like short conversations. I didn't,
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of respect privacy, but the
What's
main
your, like,
thing
your
was,
understanding of why people hate their dads in general?
yeah, I think the main thing is absence and the way that it is interpreted as a woman, meaning like dads may have no intention of this. They might not even be a bad human or a bad dad, but when they're so absent from their daughter's life, it makes us feel like we're not worthy of anything.
And by the way, you can be fully there every day and
Yes.
still be absent from their life.
Yes. It has
And I
nothing
think
to do
that's what
with
you mean.
yeah.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
And totally.
It's
Here's what I'll say, because I do feel like I'm very present in their life, but it's, like, also hard to compete with how present my wife is in their life, because she's a superstar in so many ways, and, she's, stay-at-home mom, and she worked for 18 years before we went to Barcelona, and then we moved to Barcelona, and after all that quality time together, she made a decision when we came back here, she wanted to continue that, which I loved because that was, like, another huge change from living there,
mhm.
but she's just 10x, right? Like, she's on PTA, she does all these things, and, it's intimidating for me as a dad to, like, I don't have the nose of details of all these specific things, and I'm also working and doing different things, and so the challenge for me is sometimes I feel like they compare me to her level, where she's at, and I don't know, in my mind, I'm like, where I'm at compared to where most guy dads are is, like, completely different, but I
Mhm.
still think I can be a much better dad all the time. Like, yeah, I just even with everything, there's just so much room for, like, I don't know, to do more, be more, and all, like,
Mhm.
from trips to conversations to, "Oh, I could have handled that better," or given a better speech here, or things like that, but that's part of human nature, of course.
Right, and I think the fact that you're even acknowledging that and aware of that is what makes you such a great dad too. Like, I can just tell from this conversation and our past conversation that you are an incredible dad. Your children definitely value that about you, and it's certainly not a competition between mom and dad. I think of the family as like a team, and
Totally.
you've got like the coach, you've got the assistant coach, you've got other teammates, right? Like, you can you can have a coach who has more time dedicated to work, who
Yeah,
you still
totally.
are so inspired by, right? And you look up to so much, and you might have less face-to-face time or conversations with, but it doesn't mean that that coach isn't, like,
Totally.
the coach, you know what I mean?
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
one of the things my daughter said to me, because I was like, I don't know, it was one of the rants. I was like, "You guys give me no respect." I don't know, whatever. Like, it was like joking, but it was like whatever. She's like, she's like, "We respect you a ton, but we're not going to tell you." She's like, we're not. That's just like that's not what we do. But we're gonna tease you and joke around with you. She's like, that's a healthy thing. That's because we know
Mhm,
you're a dad who likes that, and you can appreciate that, and we can joke around with you. Like, it would be worse if we felt like we couldn't do that with you. And
mhm,
it was just like again, a very empathetic, smart way to hear things. Because yeah, I know people who are like afraid of their dad, or like, I always
yep,
wanted to be my kids' best friends to some degree, but you realize it's really hard to be, especially when they're teenagers, because parents and teenagers do not. It's weird if you're their best friend as a teenager, but
mhm,
I do feel like the foundation is there, at least with my twins who are going to college next year, that I will have strong relationships, like, to your
mhm.
point, with them in college and as adults.
Yeah, absolutely,
We'll
and like I
continue
said,
to
it's
have.
an investment. Yeah, it's an investment now, and I don't think most parents do get the credit that they deserve, moms and dads. Honestly, like, especially moms, I can't even think about, or I can think, and I do think about how much my mom did for us, and to the, coach analogy, I don't even think it's like assistant coaches, the wives, by the way. It's like just you're all a team, and maybe there's like the team mom or something, and that's what the moms are, because my mom did so many things behind the scenes, and my dad's more of like the coach in terms of like leadership and
Yeah,
direction. But yeah, I think there's that quote that says, you're what is it? You don't realize your parents were right until your kids are telling you
right.
you're wrong.
Exactly, exactly.
So it's like, and I don't have kids yet, but I understand the irony behind that, and I think again, it's you're putting in the time now so that you have that relationship later, and your kids will absolutely be so grateful for everything that you're doing right now.
And we actually we call my wife like the CEO of the house. I'm the CEO of
Yes,
my business,
love
she's the
that.
CEO of the house, and there's the other thing where you see all these, like, reels on Instagram, I feel like you're talking about it enough, where it talks about, who the primary parent is when you're going on a trip, and you have to give the other parent the entire schedule of the week, all the meals, all the planning, where you're the other parent, you're going on your trip, and you just say goodbye. And, like, that's the difference between my wife and I, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's how you know the primary versus the dad, pretty much.
Yeah. That's so funny. I know, my mom made me do the same thing, like, I have a spreadsheet for all my past trips that I had, and I would give her it with all the, like, phone numbers of where I'm staying just in case, you know? It just I don't even think she even opened the document, but she loved to have it, and I always made those spreadsheets anyways, just, like, for my organization, so, um, it worked out, but that's yeah, I totally understand that analogy, and I'm sure that's pretty relevant for a lot of families.
Exactly.
One thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that your daughter has a twin brother. So when it comes to parenting, and being a girl dad, you've always also been a boy dad at the same time, and I can imagine it's challenging to, build both relationships simultaneously and kind of prioritizing the differences in each one. But would love to just hear from you about how that experience has been and what you've learned from raising twins and how to show up for your daughter differently than your son.
It's definitely different having twins, especially boy-girl twins. Until Jonah was born, and even now, like, they never fully had their own time. And even in general, they shared a room, until Jonah was born, and, like, everything was, because of lack of time, was together. And things really, like, came to a head, actually, maybe, like, 2 months ago. My daughter, like, so in my kid's school, every senior has to give a speech, one speech about, like, something that's important to them. And so 2 months ago, my daughter gave a speech. She wouldn't tell anyone except my wife what it was about. And she started the speech, and she made everyone think in the first slide, the speech was gonna be about Barcelona and how it transformed her. And so for me, I'm like, "Yeah, baby." But she's like, "Okay, it's actually not about Barcelona, it's about my twin brother, Josh." And, like, he had no idea, and you just see like, the whole school's there, and you just see his face like, "What?" And she tells him that she's secretly been jealous of him and admired him his whole life, their whole lives. And at first it was and she showed, like, these videos of them like, the first part of the video, they're both, like, dancing when they're, like, 5. "This looks like a great video of us having a good time," and you cut to, like, 3 seconds later, she's, like, in front of him going like this and whatever, because she always felt like he was the better performer, better this, better that, and she would always, like, take his toys, and so I just felt like it was such an empathetic, smart, amazing thing for her to be able to showcase this, then talk about how as they got older, they're now best friends, and
Mhm.
it was just like because they fight and things like that, but, like, for him to hear that was also, like, reinforcing, and as her parent, I knew this, of course, because I knew that, but I didn't know she knew it, like, to the extent that she
Mhm.
did. So I think that really sums up the relationship of a twin brother where there's this competition, maybe jealousy, and then at the end of the day, they're still best friends. They are best
Mhm.
friends. And when I was younger and with my sister, my parents instilled we brother sister is the most important or siblings are the most important relationship, and you got to support each other no matter what. And we've continued to push that for them. They, I mean, it's going to be the first, college will be the first time they're not together their whole lives, so it'll be, different for sure.
Yeah. No, I love that message of, always showing up for one another, and it's forever, that relationship. That's something that my dad used to always say. He'd say, "Sisters are forever, don't forget it." And if we were ever, like, fighting or whatever little thing was going on, he would make us, hold hands or hug and say, "Sisters are forever." And it's funny because I have 2 younger sisters, and I've talked to them both already today. It's 10 AM. I talk to them every day. Like, we really are best friends. They come visit me, we go out to the bars together, and everyone is in shock that we're all 3 sisters. And at first, I remember the first time we did that because my youngest sister is 21 now. I remember everyone saying that, and I was like, "I wonder why they're saying it," and because we all kind of look similar, I'm like, "It's not, like, unbelievable that we're sisters," but then when I went home, I was doing some reflecting, I was like, it's because a lot of sisters aren't at the bar hanging out together, like, having a blast, so
Totally.
we looked like friends, but that's the thing, we are, and that's something that my mom and my dad were really big on when we were kids. Like, sisters are forever, you guys are a team, we're a team as a family. And I think that's a really important message that will, again, pay dividends later. It's an investment into them now. And then when they're older, they realize how amazing that core team is.
I love that, and of course, when their younger brother was born, he became, like, their plaything in competition, and, like, they do performances for us, they did one 2 nights ago, and my wife and I were like and we filmed them over the years, and they're you never know when it's, like, the last time you're gonna do something. I'm sure you've seen these videos, like, the last time you can pick up your kid, and we were, like,
Hmm.
looking at each other, "Is this the last time they're gonna do a performance like
Oh,
this before they move out?" So, just a reminder to always be present at the moment
yes.
in that moment.
Yes, and speaking of performances, you told me a little bit about the daddy daughter show, on our last phone call, so I wanna talk about that because I think making fun and unique memories with your daughter is such an amazing way to bond, and those are the moments that when she looks back 10 years from now, 20 years from now, she's gonna remember. So, yeah, tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about the daddy daughter show.
After we spoke about it on that call, I actually went on my phone and started finding all the videos.
Aw.
And so it started with kids don't wanna go to bed, and you wanna help them with their bedtime routine. And even when my daughter was, like, young, 8, 9, whatever, she had this whole cleaning face, like a whole half hour, like, going to bed routine, and so we made this thing where she would take her phone or my phone actually, 'cause she didn't have a phone at the time, I'd put it on the mirror in the bathroom, and while she was getting ready, I'd be like, Welcome to episode 241 of the Daddy Daughter Show. Today, I'm going to teach you how to get your daughter to smile and be happy. And she's like brushing her teeth and like, Daddy, whatever. And then I'm like, at the end, I'm going to get her to hug me. She's like, I'm not going to hug you. And then she would do some shows and things like that. So it like kind of made the time go by. And I
Mhm.
knew what we were doing was we were creating something that we would have 10 years from then that we'd be able to look back on and be fun. So like we would do that every night, or we record it maybe every other night or whatever, and we have like all these videos now that someday we'll be able to do something with. But
Yeah.
they're fun memories to do at the time. We always like messing around and just like with yeah, I don't know, we just play these like when they were younger, we played games where, every parent has their games with their kids. They're on the bed and it's a ship and they fall off and you got to rescue them. Or there was a museum and they were frozen in the museum because there were statues like night at the museum. And then they came to life and I had to do all these things. So I definitely, those were things that I don't give myself enough credit for because I enjoy that. Or I read them scary stories where, my wife's not into like those silly games and I would do those.
Mhm.
We didn't record all those, but like those are certainly things that I'm definitely gonna miss. Obviously, they're already in the
Mhm.
past, but yeah, fun things like that, are ways to create more memories together.
Yeah, and I love that it's recorded. You unlocked this, like, core memory for me that wasn't recorded, and now I'm like, "Oh, man, I wish, we thought of that earlier." But, we used to play ghost tag in the hallway where, it was a long hallway and my dad would put a sheet over his head, and then he would, like, move his hands and legs around and be like, "Ooh," and you'd have to try to run by him, or you would go first down the hallway, hide somewhere in the hallway, whether it's a door jam or whatever, and then he would go past, and you'd have to find a way to get by him without him tagging you. And I remember this at this moment, maybe I was 10 years old or so, but my body was like the perfect height and my legs were the perfect length where I could climb up the walls. And so I would like put my legs on either wall and like climb all the way up. And I remember I discovered this and he would be playing ghost tag and I would be like on the ceiling, like waiting.
Never
And
gonna find you there.
never found me. Yeah, I was like, "This is the coolest hack," and I would always win. I would, like, jump down and run across and be like, "Yeah." And, but it was just such a fun memory, and, yeah, just all that play, I think, is so important, especially with fathers and daughters. That's, like, a great way to bond is just through play.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I love that idea. Hopefully, some of this was inspiring to any of the dads listening, but, speaking of which, we are coming up on time, so would love for you to just give one final piece of advice for the girl dads out there.
One final piece of advice. Let's see. So I'm just gonna think for a second. So it's of value, but not too long. I don't know. I think with I've always had a very close relationship with my wife, and to me, that's we're best friends. And I think one of the most important things for your daughter and for your kids as a whole is for them to see how your relationship is, because that's what they're going to mirror and look, whether they realize it or not, with who they're looking for in their partners in life. And so
Mhm.
I think by leading by example and putting my wife first, right, before the kids is what you should be doing in many situations because that just is teaching them and putting that forward. So I think that has always been like that the focus where I was like, okay, this is how we are. And I know that's going to seep into the relationships that they look to see with, with their boyfriends or girlfriends and whatever in the future.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, and I actually, put a clip on YouTube saying that if you wanna put your kids first, you should put your wife
There you
first,
go.
and, I got so much hate, but I'm like, I couldn't agree more. I will stand by that statement. I think it's so good for the kids to look up to parents who have a great relationship, and it teaches them to feel secure in the family and safe, and for daughters, those are 2 extremely important feelings for us to have. So if we look to our father and our mom and the relationship and we feel those feelings, that's really, really beneficial to us. So that's why I say I think that is a way of putting the kids first. So anyways, I appreciate that advice. I think that's a great way to end this show. And I appreciate you for coming on. Thank you, David.
Thanks for having me on, Madeline. It was really fun.
Thank you for tuning into Girl Dad, the podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow girl dad. I read every review and truly take your words to heart. To close out, remember, your intentional moments make lasting legacies. See you next week.